What's up, guys? We are back. I have outlined everything in Sharpie. I have curved all of my edges like this. And I'm about ready to start painting, but first I need to erase my lines that I have here, or finish erasing them. Okay, so go through and make sure you don't have any pencil lines popping up here. Okay, make sure you get rid of all of those because we are using watercolor and pencil lines will show up through watercolor if you forget to erase them. So please make sure you take care of them so that your artwork looks a little bit nicer. Okay, now when we're painting this, we're going to create a kind of a different value effect where it goes kind of from like dark to light in our picture. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use a fine tipped brush like this here. Okay, so you don't want to use a huge brush. You want to use just kind of a smaller, thinner brush like this. And what I'm going to do is I have my colors here. Okay, and I'm going to use some of this red, which I don't have very much left. Okay, but I'm going to use just a tiny bit of water on my brush. I'm going to add some water to my red paint here, and I'm going to choose whatever space I'm working with. So I'm going to start with this one right up here. And I'm basically going to outline very thinly and carefully with my paintbrush, like that. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way around, getting more paint as I need it. Okay, now for this step, you don't want to add a lot of water to your paint. Okay, as little as possible, because the more water you have, the lighter your paint color will be and the runnier it will be. Okay, and those are the things that we don't really want for this right now. Okay. Another thing that you want to keep in mind too is if you have runnier paint, if you paint the next section, so if I wanted to paint this a different color, like I wanted to paint it green, and both of my paints were really runny, I would end up with a kind of a yucky brown in the center. It might bleed over into the next space when I really don't want it to. Okay, so I have this outlined here. I'm going to kind of smooth this out a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to get my brush wet again. I'm going to come back and I'm going to get some more paint. So this is going to be a little bit wetter here, and I'm going to go around this again, but I'm going to make the line bolder and thicker. Okay, now it's important to do these two steps. Don't try to rush through the bold step on the first one because it might not work out the way that you want it to. Okay, so I'm kind of bringing this around here. And a lot of times on yours, it will be a little bit lighter. Mine isn't super obvious because sometimes red isn't that obvious with this. Okay, so it's thicker and bolder here. And now, let me go back over this part. Okay, now I'm going to rinse my brush out and I'm going to use only plain water. So I'm not dipping it in the paint, I'm just coming here. And I'm going to start kind of, not in the exact middle, but a little ways away from the paint here. I'm going to paint plain water onto this, and then I can come up to this part here and it kind of blends it in and gets lighter. Okay, so I'm going to continue this on. Okay, now I'm kind of going in a circular motion, but I don't want to scrub my paper hard. So we don't want it to feel like we're doing dishes. Okay, I'm just blending my colors around so it looks nice and smooth. Okay, now this space is a little bit bigger. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more color to it because it's a little too light in the center for me. Okay, so I'm just going to take, I have my wet brush, I'm going to come back and grab some red paint. Okay, and I'm going to bring this around the edge here a little bit more. just like this. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush off. And then I'm gonna come back and kind of blend this out a little bit further. Okay, so the goal is to have kind of a nice smooth transition. Okay, now another thing to keep in mind too while you're working with watercolor, if you feel like your paper is getting a little bit too wet in one spot, right, I kind of feel like I might want to add another layer to make this a little brighter in a little bit. Okay, but what I will do is, in order to make that happen, is I will just let this dry, because if it gets too wet, then the paper can tear really easily, which is the opposite of what we want to do. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you can see how it's darker on the outside, lighter on the inside. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and move on to another one. Okay, so for my raven, I want to make this a little bit more dimensional than just using one singular color, because I don't want it all to kind of blend in together, okay? Because ravens are black, right? And they're kind of shiny, so they can pick up other colors along with it. And so I'm using purple a little bit in with my black, and I know it's kind of hard to see on the camera. The lighting's never great. You can kind of see it a little bit. Well, maybe it's there. Just trust me. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if I am mixing colors, is I am going to, so I have this one right here, you guys can kind of see. I'm actually going to skip the one next to it. I'm going to do this one right here, just because I want this one to dry a little bit before I start on this one. Okay, so I'm going to do this. Whoops. That's okay, it's gonna be painted anyway. So I'm gonna work on this one right here. So I'm taking my brush, I'm dipping it in the water, okay, and I'm getting a little bit of black here, just a tiny bit, okay, and then again, I'm going to outline my shape like this, and I wanna keep it kind of dark, so I don't wanna use too much water. Okay, remember, the more water you use, the lighter your color gets. And we'll use more water to lighten our color later, but for now, we want to keep it a little bit darker. Okay, you can see my gray here is not that dark. So I'm going to go over this again. There we go. Dark like the night. Okay. There we go. Now, to add in some dimension, like I said, I'm going to mix some colors in here. So I'm going to come over here to my purple, okay, which on the camera, it basically looks the same as the black, but I promise in real life it's purple. And I'm going to get a little bit of color, and I'm going to do the same thing again over this black here. And I don't want to get super crazy just on this one, because I don't want it to be crazy purple. I want it to still look like it's black. Okay, so I've added that in there. So I've gone over it twice, and now I'm going to go back with just plain water. Okay, remember, we start kind of in the center, not exactly on the paint here, adding some water first. And then watch this as it picks up. Can you guys see the paint moving, that little bit of grayish purple right there? The paint will move into the water because it's water soluble. Okay, and again, I'm not pressing hard. I'm actually just barely touching my paper. Okay, we don't want to scrub it like it's dishes. Okay, we want to be nice and gentle, because wet paper can get very sensitive. Okay. Okay, and I can blend this around as needed. Okay, and I'm actually going to add a little bit more black to it, but for this one, I'm gonna add a little bit more water here so it's not super dark. Okay, and then remember we want to show the difference, so it's going to be a little bit lighter in the middle, in the center there. Okay, smooth this out just a little bit, and we have that nice transition. Okay, so this kind of gives you the kind of looks a little like warped glass, a little bit. Okay, so I can continue on. I think I'm going to go ahead and do another red one. Actually, I take that back. Let's do, hold on. Okay, so I got some more paint, some more red paint. Okay, so again, I'm gonna do this big one right here, and I'm gonna paint it a little thicker with the red. So I don't wanna go too thin around the outside because it's a really big space. Okay, so I have my red here. Again, I'm outlining. And if you wanna mix colors like I did with the Raven, you're more than welcome to do that. We did that with some color layering and manipulation there. Okay. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and add my second layer. So remember when we add our second layer, we make it a little bit bolder, especially on these bigger pieces here. Okay, so we're filling this in. We're just working our way around here. Isn't it weirdly relaxing to watch somebody else paint for some reason? Sometimes I watch my own videos and I'm like, wow, that's nice. Like living vicariously through somebody, except it was me in the past. It's kind of weird. But it's relaxing. I don't know. I guess art is soothing to make and soothing to watch. That's why everybody likes Bob Ross. Okay, so I have a nice, thick, bold red going around here. Remember, I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm going to come in with some wet, just plain water here. And then I'm going to reach over here, and do you see how that paint kind of starts to spill into the water? Okay, and I'm going up along there, just like this. I'm going to fill in my space here. Now for this one, it kind of looks like it is, the line is very obvious, right? I want it to be, my outline rather, is a lot more obvious, and I want it to be more subtle than that. Okay, so I'm gonna finish up this middle section here, kind of blending these colors through. There we go. Nice and solid through here. Okay, now I'm going to take my brush. I've got some water on it, off camera, of course. And then I'm not going to wipe the extra water off. Okay, so I don't know if you can see it, but there is a little drop of water on the end of my brush, and I'm going to dip this in here to lighten up my red. Okay, and I'm going to come around here and kind of very lightly paint in here. Okay, do you see how whenever I put that on, the color started to spread? It's because the paper's already wet. Okay, if you remember in Art 1, we call this the wet on wet method. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing again, so I'm getting a little bit more. And what I'm doing is I've added more water to my red, so it's lightened my red up, okay? Which is okay because I'm trying to blend my super light red and my regular red over here, my darker red. Okay, so I need a medium red in order to do that. Okay, and my medium is achieved by a little bit more water. Okay. And I can kind of blend this towards the center because remember I want my middle section to be a little bit lighter. Can use a little bit more water. Nice. Okay, now I'm going to go back in with some darker red. So I'm picking actually from the, sorry, you can't see that, from the edge where it's a little bit drier. And I'm going to go through and kind of add a little bit more to some of these outlined areas because they are not as dark as I would like them to be. Okay, and then I go in with a little bit more of my water here just to kind of blend this through so I have less of a line. I feel like that's like the word I say most in art is blend, 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 blend. Keep blending, just keep blending, blending, blending. What do? We blend, blend. There we go. All right, so that is how we're going to be painting in our project. Okay, I will have mine, once it's finished, I'll have it hanging on the board so you guys can see everything. Okay, but it's going to go light to dark, kind of like this. All right, I think that's all for now, guys.